Hello, everyone. Welcome to Enabling Insights into Student Success for Academic Advisors with Machine Learning. My name is Bart Pursel. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning with Technology and Innovation at Penn State, and I'll ask my colleagues to introduce themselves now, starting with Ben.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Hellar. I am the lead user experience researcher at Penn State Teaching and Learning with Technology.
Hi, everybody. I'm Drew Wham. I'm the lead data scientist.
Thank you. So for today, we first want to provide a little bit of a context for the work of teaching and learning with technology, what we often refer to as TLT. And then we want to describe two data-centric projects designed to support advising. The first project is called Lift, and the second project we call Elevate. And then finally, we want to articulate some of the important lessons that we've learned while developing these projects that are very data-centric here at Penn State. To give everyone a sense of teaching and learning with technology, we're part of the larger Penn State IT organization. So we sit within the IT infrastructure at the university. And our main goal is really focused on helping faculty be successful in teaching and learning in all its forms. Oftentimes we say teaching and learning with technology, and the with technology is sort of in a much smaller font here. Teaching now involves technology, especially in the age that we're in now with the pandemic, that we're all using technology in really different and interesting and creative ways. So in addition to having the data team, the data empowered learning team, which is represented here today, along with a couple other members of the team, TLT consists of learning designers, faculty researchers, some different software development groups, as well as training groups. So we like to be able to innovate and take projects from very small concepts, small ideas, rapidly prototype, and then move those into our different ecosystems, whether that means faculty-facing tools and programs and things like that, or student-facing applications, or in the case of today, advisor-facing applications. You'll notice here we'll talk a lot about or reference the Division of Undergraduate Studies, or DUS. So at Penn State University, DUS, if you come to the university as a freshman and you haven't decided your major yet, you end up in what's called DUS as sort of your major. It's sort of a temporary major. So it's a place that has a large degree of advisors where students go and work with an advisor to explore certain fields that they might be interested in, explore some different courses. So they're constantly meeting with their advisors. Advisors are trying to help them find the different disciplines and majors that resonate with them. And then students end up moving out of DUS into these different colleges and their associated majors. So while Penn State is very decentralized in terms of advising, we have advising that takes place within our colleges. Penn State consists of about 24 different campus locations. So each campus has advisors on their campus. So there's no central advising unit per se, but DUS often takes the lead in coordinating advising activities. So by working with the Division of Undergraduate Studies and the personnel there, we can really coordinate the rollout of these types of tools that we use to support academic advising with data in interesting and unique ways. I'm going to turn it over to Ben now. He's going to talk a little bit about our first prototype called Lift.
All right, let's handle this virtual transition seamlessly, and here we go. Great. Well, hello, everyone. Again, Ben Hellar. I am the user experience researcher, and today I'm going to talk to you about Lift, which is about how we've leveraged AI for academic advising. So as Bart alluded to, this project actually started as a partnership between DUS and TLT. And one of the ways we partnered was by we were awarded an internal seed grant to explore the use of predictive analytics in the context of academic advising. And as a part of that seed grant, our objectives were to have 3 deliverables. One was to come up with training materials and packages for advisors so that we could better educate them on the ethical use of analytics in advising. The second thing we were going to do was come up and do some research on ethical reviews, come up with a process report and have a report outlining what are the ethical considerations that were related to using predictive analytics. And then third was a technical review talking about the different types of technologies that would be required to actually employ these type of analytics and through machine learning, cloud computing, data availability, etc. So that said, what is Lift? Well, Lift at its core is a way of looking at how is a way for us to personalize insights into how students might perform in specific classes by looking at how similar students performed at the class. In essence, we are looking at how this green apple compares to all the yellow apples that came before it. In order to build the model, we trained a decision tree machine learning model over the 8.6 million institutional records that we've collected since 2005. These records include everything from transcripts to the university to application data. And through that data, we've then constructed a user experience that we call Lift that is designed for advisors to explore the relationship between a student's course selection and their potential outcomes. So this is what the Lift interface looks like. You go to the Lift and you can go ahead and get started, and what you see, a little shrunk in that you can see here is a list of students on the left-hand side, their semester credits, the number of total credits, their cumulative GPA. But more importantly, we can see that for each specific student, whether a student is taking a course for that semester where they have a potential alert showing that one of the courses in their course schedule has a low score for a low potential outcome. And so when we are, if we go to the next page, we can see that for that student, we've generated a course schedule visualization that looks at a potential course schedule. And this would be a 17 credit, course schedule for a student, where we can visualize a couple of different interesting statistics. One, we can visualize what the percentile scores are for the student in this specific course. And what's unique about this is that is a visualization that is unique to this specific instructor at that campus for that given course. So Comp Sci 101 taught by one instructor would be different than another, and this is this specific student's adjusted score to show where the student would likely fall. And so this indicates that Comp Sci 101 is not only one of the most difficult classes at the university, so red meaning more difficult and lower outcomes, blue meaning slightly less difficult or higher outcomes. This would indicate that this is one of the harder courses, and this student is slightly, maybe potentially less prepared than other students. And so as we go across the row, we see the course average is the hard facts of what the course appears. But this student, compared to other students that have taken this course in the past, this sample would show that this student is roughly in a D range compared to the course average of a B minus. And we can expand this row out to then explore what are the various factors of the model that would contribute to why the student has a low similar student score. And so some of the reasons for that could be a low cumulative average of that student. The course, as I suggested, is likely more difficult and has lower averages, etc. And so with this interface, advisors can proactively identify students and then outreach to help get a hold of students that are maybe in a schedule that is more difficult than intended. And so where are we today with Lift? Well, Lift, prior to COVID happening, we were supposed to be running our final study that was going to complete the study. That said, we have extended that study slightly, but we have found some interesting things that we want to report on in the interim. One is that Lift has definitely already helped shed light on situations that were atypical from the conventionally known difficult courses at the university. And we were also able to find specific situations where Lift was able to highlight students that were placed in a math course where they were unlikely to succeed. And then the last sort of points is that we've discovered a lot about training and ethics and advising, where advisors have had a large sort of variance in understanding their comfortability in using analytic data. And we sort of discovered the importance of providing the correct training and procedures to sort of help them be able to make the right decisions with this type of data. So with that said, I'm going to transition to our other tool, Elevate, which takes a different sort of a look at institutional data. Go ahead, Drew.
All right, thank you, Ben. So yes, I will be talking about Elevate, and as Ben was talking about Lift helps advisors reason through the very beginning of a semester which students are in the appropriate classes and whether they might need to reevaluate the classes they're in. Once the semester starts though, advisors also need to be able to check in on their students and understand how well their students are doing in those classes. Of course, Penn State has both early reporting to advisors from faculty directly, but as the institution transitioned from largely in-person to largely online in March, having a window for advisors into Canvas activity for the ability to understand whether students are engaging in that course activity in Canvas in a positive way became more and more important. So this is how we began working on Elevate. And Elevate provides that window for advisors, and it helps identify students that appear to be either not engaging at all in their courses over a certain period of time, or are engaging significantly less than their peers in the classroom. And this gives us the ability then to create warnings and alerts. And these warnings both appear natively inside of Elevate, the application, and for the advisors, but also can appear outside of that in a daily email digest that is sent to advisors. So this is the base roster screen that a advisor would see when they sign into Elevate. What you can see is just some basic information about each of the students on that advisor's roster, broken down by the semester. Common information that you might be able to see in other places, like the cumulative GPA of the student and how many courses they're enrolled in for that semester and their semester standing. But the important thing here is on the far right side, where we have warnings in yellow and alerts in orange. And here we're able to sort by that, so we're able to quickly identify students that have high numbers of alerts and warnings that we might need to then look further into to see exactly what the context for those alerts and warnings are. So by clicking on an individual student, we would then progress to that student's schedule page, where we see each of the courses that a student is enrolled in. On the far right side, we'll see the same alerts and warnings now attached to the individual courses that those alerts or warnings come from. And we also show a couple important statistics here. First one is the cumulative activity. 33% here means that up until this point in the semester, this student has interacted in Canvas about 33%, or 1/3 of the average student in that course. And we also show the same information, but only over the last 7 days. So this can give you a glimpse into their long run or full semester activity compared to the average student, and then the most recent. So once we see all that information for the full schedule, then we're able to then drill down even further into individual course. Looking at an individual course, we're able to see a plot here that shows the 7-day rolling average activity for the course over the entire course so far. So this is a screenshot taken right at the beginning of April. So what we can see in blue is the average student in the course, and where the blue bar is high, that means that that's a point in time in the course where students are very active. Lower, those are points in time where students are less active. And then the student that we're focused in is in red. And so to the degree that those two follow the same shape, then that means the student that we're looking at is doing very similar activities as everybody else. But you can key in here where we've highlighted in yellow and then eventually in orange, where the student does not engage in course activity that others in their class do engage in, which triggers the warning status, which then progresses into an alert status because that student does not engage while others are engaging for a certain period of time. We also show some other views of the same information. So this is the same information just in a cumulative chart. We're able to see that the student really stopped engaging significantly in February, but they may have come in and checked on some things. And then when other students started engaging again, this looks like roughly after spring break for us. And so when other students started engaging after spring break, this student did not. Okay, so some important considerations when thinking about this data and how this application is going to be used at Penn State. First, low activity doesn't always mean that the student is doing poorly. Of course, there are circumstances where a student might have, for instance, printed all of the relevant information off from a printer at the beginning of the semester, and they're referring to those things as they go, and they don't need to come in and check. Vice versa, a student that is doing really poorly may be engaging quite frequently in the course, but still not actually digesting that information and learning to the degree that they need to. So this is not necessarily to say that low activity means low performance per se. That requires the human in the loop with the advisor to really check in to figure out if the student is not engaging, what the context of that is. Additionally, we have all sorts of different activity in here. So activity, when we describe that, we mean absolutely anything that you would do in Canvas. So viewing an assignment, taking a quiz, turning something in, participating in a discussion forum. So nearly everything provides context. And by comparing to the average student, we hope to provide the context of the difference between the student we're looking at and the average student, where if you're not doing something that everybody else is doing, likely that is significant, and so that requires an advisor or to at least check in to see what's going on. We are continuing to engage in what we'll sort of describe as a soft rollout of this. So we generated Elevate between the very beginning of summer and now. As we come into fall, we began the fall by letting some advisors in and importantly, socializing Elevate around campus to various deans, department heads, advising various advising groups that exist around the campus to get feedback from them about what they thought should be in an application like this, and to how they interpreted the data that was being shown. Then what we've importantly heard from them, that they wanted to receive these warnings we wanted the warnings to come to where they were. And so they were already actively working in Starfish. So we sought ways in which we could surface these warnings in Starfish so that they could stay there in their normal working environment. And then we put links into Starfish so that they could jump out to our application fluidly from a student's roster page in Starfish. So we worked on that integration. And then we also heard from various sources that, that Zoom, being one of the primary platforms for course delivery now, that they wanted the ability to understand engagement that was happening in Zoom. And so we've been working with the Zoom request data to see if we can integrate that information into Elevate as well, so that that can appear as alongside of other course engagement or course activity data. We've followed kind of a path from the beginning of the semester to soft launch with members of DOS that we had previously been working with in Lift, leveraging our multi-year relationship with those advisors in that application development, and they're currently in the application. We are now working to move beyond that cohort, basically right now, opening it up to advising offices that are around the campus. We're doing that through October, and then by the middle of October, nearing the time where there would be late drop periods at Penn State, we are looking to put this in the hands of even a wider audience, and perhaps even faculty towards the end of the year. Okay. With that, I will hand it back over to Bart.
Okay. So some of the lessons that we've learned through both Elevate and Lift, as well as some of the other things that we've engaged with the data empowered learning team. The first big one is our relationship with our privacy office. So we have spent a great deal of time becoming friends with the folks over in our privacy office. The first thing that we engage with around the privacy office is something they have called a privacy impact assessment. So for folks that have done human subjects research, and you go through the IRB process where you have to articulate your research design and the types of data that you will be collecting from the people that participate in your research, this the projects we have in our data team aren't exactly that, right? They aren't human subjects research. They're more operational, right? This is our jobs to produce these types of tools that can help students be successful by servicing data to different types of end users. So in order to have people kind of vet our projects, we go through what's called a privacy impact assessment. And I believe you can find an example of this here on our privacy office website that makes sure everything that we're doing is in bounds, it's within policy, it's within regulations. And they also have an eye towards ethics too, ethics and data privacy. So they certainly weigh in on different things that we need to be cognizant of and we need to be thinking about when we engage in projects like this. And it's to the point now, we started out just working with them on sort of an ad hoc basis on some of these privacy impact assessments. We've become such good friends now with our privacy office folks that we meet with them quarterly just to provide updates on here's where our projects are, here's the type of things we're seeing in our projects, just to make sure they're always aware of what's going on. We often put addendums in on our privacy impact assessments related to certain tools. So if we change course, bring in different end users, we do those sorts of things. And I don't think they realized until recently how much influence they have on the projects we do or do not take on. It's to the point now, even when we're just in a project concept phase, trying to think about, imagining the tool or the types of data that would be incredibly valuable for end users, we go to them with the concept. Because if there's something that we're not thinking about in the concept phase and we put some code down and move this thing forward and then address the privacy concerns with the privacy office, that's potentially lost time. So they become fantastic partners. And I think anyone who plans to do any work around creating applications that leverages data, institutional data specifically, by all means, engage your folks in your security and privacy offices, because they can be huge allies and provide a level of air cover here that's critically important, that we're not viewed as just folks in IT out there doing different things with data, that we've actually had all of our work very carefully vetted from the experts here on our campus. Another piece of this that's been alluded to already with both Lift and Elevate is training. And it goes a little bit beyond training. It's part of what I would call maybe situating your end users in the data. With Elevate, this is very much our advising community, right? To make sure that we have a baseline of training materials that very clearly indicate, the data definitions. What does this data mean? The raw definitions of the data. What are the different elements of the user interface? What are the different the functionality of the user interface? To make sure everyone has that same baseline understanding. And we do this right now through a mix of asynchronous standalone materials as well as some synchronous training environments. And we try and put a lot of this material directly into the application themselves. So as advisors have questions, they're only a click or two away from the information that'll help make sure they're situated correctly when they're looking at the data. Another important thing that we found is with our advising community, leveraging things like case studies. And we haven't done role-playing activities yet, but we've gotten into some discussions about role-playing activities to help them really understand the nuance of these situations they might encounter, the different types of data they might see. So in the case of Elevate, we have a few different screenshots from actual classes, right, that we've essentially anonymized. And we put that in front of our advising community and ask them, what would you do in this scenario? And sometimes we even fabricate some information that we put around those screenshots, right? Imagine this is a student that you've interacted with a dozen times already. You know these things about the student. You see this screen inside of Elevate. What is your next action? How would you interpret this? What would you do? And those have been incredibly enlightening conversations with the advisors. And we've heard from the advisors that that's some of their, the best training we can provide, where we can put them in sometimes uncomfortable situations with the data and then have them engage with their colleagues on, okay, what's the best course of action here? How would we wrestle with this? And while they talk that out, we're furiously taking notes, trying to capture this kind of information that we can then roll back into future training activities with the advisors. There's another tidbit here that when we started to do this work, I used to say this phrase here, we shall do no harm, right? That as soon as we find out that we're doing harm, it's time to shut these kind of things down. And I think I've been convinced otherwise by talking to different colleagues at different institutions, is that whenever we put data out there in front of people to use, there's always a small chance someone might misinterpret something, someone might make a unintentional harmful decision around that data. So with our training activities, it's really about how much can we maximize all the positive, great decisions we can support with things like Elevate when it's used in conjunction with all the other tools advisors have, and then minimize as much as possible through training activities and awareness the potential for someone to inadvertently make a poor decision or misinterpret the data. And the last thing with the training here, you know, coming from a training background, when we started to engage advisors, I didn't quite understand how challenging an advisor's role is in a complex ecosystem like Penn State. So, you know, all the colleges have advising units, all the campuses have advising units, there's DUS, and we were trying to get the training activities really dialed in. So, you know, if you have this situation, this is your action. And as we tried to sort of move to that environment, every time we got into that conversation, the advisors would say, well, it depends. It depends on the culture of the campus that you're working on. It depends on all these variables. So it's been a very interesting experience learning of all the nuances of advising and how challenging the jobs that they have, especially now with the pandemic in place. And it makes our job a little challenging on the training front, right? To try and account for as many of those it depends scenarios as possible. So we're always learning in this too, which keeps it very engaging. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this idea of, you know, these projects are really interesting and allow us to build really interesting bridges throughout Penn State. We've talked about different groups we work with. You know, the advising units were sort of a new group for Penn State IT to work with, specifically teaching and learning with technology. Before we got into these projects, we predominantly were working with faculty members. So this opened the door for us to hopefully have positive impacts with the advising community. That's been really really good experience for us. We build a lot of bridges behind the scenes with different stewards of different data. We use data from admissions applications. We use data from our student information system. So we're constantly building bridges behind the scenes with these different entities at the university that are stewards of different data sets. And with things like Elevate, we're finding that we're building bridges into other units around the university that have a need for Elevate or Elevate-like functionality that aren't advisors or faculty members. So for example, we have a World Campus that teaches a lot of courses online. One of the things they have challenges with is identifying the last date of substantial interaction a student has. So if a student drops out of a World Campus curriculum, there's some level of a refund that student gets based on their last date of interaction. Elevate gives the World Campus folks a really good detailed look at when was the last sort of significant date of interaction in Canvas, knowing that a lot of our online courses take place in Canvas. And we've had our Morgan Center engage us. That's basically the academic advisors that oversee the athletes, the academic counselors. So they're interested in using Elevate to make sure that they can be as supportive as possible for our student athletes. We also have what we call summer bridge courses. So courses that aren't really tied to an actual course that's in our student information system, but courses that are designed for freshmen coming to a campus for the first time, just to make sure they get situated in that campus culture. What are the different resources they have access to and things like that. So that's another thing we're thinking about is could we put Elevate on top of these, we call them Canvas prides. They aren't exactly courses, but they're very important to help students transition, you know, in this case, from high school into the college environment. And Elevate might help those success counselors on those campus understand which students are really engaged and really sort of understanding that culture and moving into becoming a member of that culture on that campus versus which students might not be so engaged there. So these types of projects really allow us to become much more visible across Penn State and get tied into a lot of different projects from different units that we otherwise probably would go unaware of. So if you have any questions, by all means, let us know. Here are our email addresses. And if you have a specific question about Elevate, there's actually an email address that goes specifically to the Elevate team. So if you made it this far, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate it, and we hope you're having a good EDUCAUSE experience.